The West End is one of the jewels in London's crown, contributing hugely economically, socially and culturally. But they face a perfect storm with people social distancing, with people working from home, with the lack of public confidence, but also a collapse in domestic and international tourism. Some businesses I've spoken to have seen their footfall fall by up to 75 and 80%. And that's why one of the key things the government's got to do is support these businesses going forward. I've been speaking to businesses across the West End, from shops to restaurants, and the key thing from them is the government announcing as soon as possible a package of targeted measures to help these businesses in the West End: retail, hospitality, leisure, culture. These businesses need support from the government. I've set out in a letter to the Prime Minister today a package of measures the government could be doing to support these businesses. What I don't want to see is these businesses going bust or their workers being made redundant. That's why it's really important the government steps up and supports the West End. I want Londoners to get back to doing the things they love. Wear a face covering, help control the virus. Unfortunately, we know that the coronavirus pandemic has had a profound impact on young people who have talked about experiencing more mental health issues, isolation, loneliness, and a feeling of a lack of opportunities going forward. This summer we're investing £2.1 million to provide constructive things for young people to do this summer leading into autumn, from sports to culture to education. This is building on work we've already been doing. I'll continue to invest in young people to make sure young Londoners can have their potential fulfilled. Now, more than ever, we need these youth services. I of course know that this festival is a time for families and communities to get together and enjoy good food and company. But its deeper meaning couldn't be more relevant today, because more than anything, the story of Eid al-Adha is about the virtue of sacrifice. This year, we've all had to make huge sacrifices, not only to protect our loved ones, but our communities, our neighbours and people across London. This is especially true for our heroic NHS and essential workers, Muslims and non-Muslims, who've done so much for our city. So this Eid al-Adha, I want to pay special tribute to them and to everyone undertaking social distance Eid prayers as we all continue to play our part in defeating COVID-19. From my family to yours, thank you and Eid Mubarak. Thank you, London. London is the greatest city in the world. I'm so proud of our city. I'm deeply humbled by the hope and trust you have placed in me today. I grew up on a council estate just a few miles from here. Back then, I never dreamt that someone like me could be elected as Mayor of London. And I want to say thank you to every single Londoner for making the impossible possible today. I have a burning ambition for London, an ambition that will guide me every day as Mayor of our great city. I want every single Londoner to get the opportunities that our city gave to me and my family. The opportunities not just to survive, but to thrive. The opportunities to build a better future for you and your family, with a decent and affordable home and a comfortable commute you can afford. More jobs with better pay. Not just being safe, but feeling safe. Cleaner air and a healthier city. And the opportunities for all Londoners to fulfil their potential. You know, I've been thinking a lot about my late dad today. He was a wonderful man and a great dad. He would have been so proud today. Proud that the city he chose to call his home has now chosen one of his children to be the mayor. I want to say thank you to my amazing mum, she really is, and to my wonderful wife, my daughters, and to my family. Without you, I wouldn't be here today. And I want to say thank you to everyone who worked so hard on this election. To my campaign team, we've run a positive campaign and we've worked our socks off. I want to thank all the other campaign teams too, to every Assembly candidate from every party, to the police, the returning officer, and all the staff who have made the election happen. And of course, to all the other mayoral candidates. This election was not without controversy. And I'm so proud that London has today chosen hope over fear and unity over division. I hope that we will never be offered such a stark choice again. Fear does not make us safer, it only makes us weaker. And the politics of fear is simply not welcome in our city. I want to end by making a promise to London. A promise I first made during the campaign, but a promise that I will keep here in City Hall. I promise to always be a mayor for all Londoners, to work hard to make life better for every Londoner, regardless of your background, and to do everything in my power to ensure you get the opportunities that our incredible city gave to me. Thank you very much. Is somebody making notes of these ideas? These are great ideas.
Make sure that public transport is electric.
We should not have plastic bags, we should have paper bags.
We should save the trees.
Really good idea, save the trees. And plant new trees as well.
Why are you so worried about air pollution?
Because we now have got evidence from scientists which show how bad the air is. And I think things have got so bad, we face a climate emergency. Young people like you will have problems with your lungs, and some of you may have asthma as well. That's why it's really important we clean up the air. Very recently, I've got asthma. I never had asthma before because I've got to use a pump. One of the explanations the doctor gives me for why I've got asthma is because of the bad air.
What have you done to improve air quality in London?
We've got more electric buses than any city in Europe. We are investing in walking and cycling and using public transport. And also we've introduced a new policy called the Ultra Low Emission Zone. Who's heard of the ULEZ? When I became mayor, we asked a university to look at the policies before I became mayor and say, look, how long would it take with those policies to clean up the air? And they said it would take 193 years. Now, that's a long time, isn't it? And I said, using our policies, how quickly can we do it? And they said within 6 years. What would you prefer, 193 years or 6 years?
6 years.
6 years. All of us can do things to address the issue of the bad air. You're the best examples of the difference we can make. And that's why don't let anybody say you've got no influence, you have. I want to thank every single person that works in the NHS in London and around our country. You truly are the best. Your hard work, dedication and courage is saving lives every single day, and we need you now more than ever before. I urge everyone to join together and applaud for our NHS. Thank you. It's good to be here on this bus. I'm not sure if you know, my dad used to be a bus driver. I'm here at Brixton Garage announcing some really good news, which is a £1,600 bus retention scheme to keep our drivers in their job. Really good to be here. Assalamu alaikum. And Eid Mubarak to everyone celebrating the end of Ramadan. I'll be honest, this year I found fasting from dawn until dusk tough going. But as always, it's been a deeply rewarding experience too, because it gives an appreciation of just how hard life can be for those who are less fortunate, the hungry, the destitute and the homeless. For me, the highlight of Ramadan has been breaking my fast with Londoners of all faiths and backgrounds at events across our city. From the first ever iftar to be hosted at St Paul's Cathedral with the Bishop of London, to the Ramadan tent project with hundreds of young Londoners of all backgrounds in Trafalgar Square. At a time of rising intolerance, it's been inspiring to see London come together like this, showing that our diversity isn't a weakness, but our city's greatest strength. From my family to yours, Eid Mubarak. London's local businesses are the beating heart of our city. And with Pay It Forward London, you can prepay for goods and services to keep them going until it's safe to reopen. Well, what I take personally is when you've got the president amplifying the tweets of a far-right activist. That's what I find more of concern. You've got somebody who is a poster boy for a global far-right movement who's amplifying a tweet from somebody who's known to be a far-right activist. And look, I'm too busy running London to worry about what the president tweets, except when it's him amplifying the messages from far-right activists. And just bear in mind, leaders in Hungary, leaders in Italy, leaders in France from the far right, but people like this far-right activists look upon Donald Trump as their poster boy, and that should cause us concern.
But yet 4 killings in the last 4 days in London. Killings have never been higher than in a decade under your rule. You know, surely you're getting it wrong here.
Well, it is tragic. When you meet, as I do, some of these families who's lost a loved one, it's tragic. These families will never be the same again. Over the last 4 days, we've had 4 homicides in our city, a number of other incidents of serious violence. The police are working incredibly hard with my full support. Unlike the government, I'm funding our police in London. The Violent Crime Task Force works so hard. They've been working this weekend, making arrests, taking knives off our street. We need the community to help us as well. It's really important we tackle the root causes of violent crime, but I'm not going to pretend it's not a tragedy.
Boris Johnson says under him violent crime was lower than it was under you. What do you say to that?
Look, it's not for me right to make cheap particle points when we've had these sorts of bereavements, but just look at the evidence in relation to what we've been doing over the last 3 years. Violent crime did start going up in 2014. I was in the mayor in 2014 as another guy. Violent crimes began up across the country. We are seeing in London, if you speak to the Met Police Commissioner, you look at the figures, some progress has been made, but it's no consolation if you lost a loved one. It's no consolation if you're the victim of violent crime, the fact that it's less serious here than it is in other parts of the country. We need to make sure we work with the police, City Hall, youth groups, civic society, parents, the NHS, social services, education, but also the government together to tackle this issue. I've got 60 seconds to list my top achievements as mayor. So let's go. Making commuting more affordable for millions of Londoners. Introducing the Hopper bus fare and freezing TfL fares for 4 years. Opening the Night Tube and Overground. Tackling London's polluted air through the world's first ultra-low emission zone. Planted over 250,000 trees, more than the previous mayor planted in 8 years. Cleaning up our taxis and buses. Tripling the amount of protected cycle lanes. Started building more council homes than in any year since 1984. Ditched the dodgy definition of an affordable home. Broken the record for 3 years in a row for the highest number of genuine affordable homes begun. Given tenants the right to vote on estate regeneration and produced plans for introducing rent controls. Been tough on crime and tough on its causes. Investing £70 million to create more opportunities for young Londoners. Funding the Met Police Violent Crime Task Force, who removed thousands of criminals from our streets. Funding 1,300 extra police officers for London. Providing legal advice for our city's EU citizens, and always standing up for London's values, whether against Donald Trump, Boris Johnson or anyone else. I've run out of time, but if you want to see more real action for our city, remember to vote Labour on the 7th of May. Great to be here at Diwali in the square, celebrating the wonderful festival of Diwali. And it's a festival where we celebrate the victory of light over darkness, of good over evil, of friendship over enmity, and knowledge over ignorance. Good example behind me of, despite the bad weather, thousands of Londoners celebrating Diwali in the square. I met with the Chief Medical Officer today, who's the country's leading expert on the issue of coronavirus. His advice is quite clear. We should carry on doing what we've been doing, go to work as we normally do, use the bus and the tube. The key thing is to please regularly and thoroughly wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds during the course of a day. Carry around a tissue that's disposable to cough or sneeze into, or if you haven't got one, do that into your arm. If you're feeling unwell, please don't go to the GP or the A&E. Ring your GP or go to the NHS 111 website. The Chief Medical Officer is quite clear. We're still in the contained part of dealing with the virus. We'll then move on to the delay part and then the mitigate part. In the meantime, there's still the research being undertaken. It's really important we follow the advice from the experts, which is to go about a normal business, still go to events, indoor or outdoor, where it's advised to do so. If the advice should change, the Chief Medical Officer will make sure he lets me know, and I'll make. It's been 100 days since I was first elected as the Mayor of London. Thanks to the hard work of Labour members and supporters across our city. I want to take a moment to say thank you for all your help. This is a chance to look back at the last 100 days at what we've been able to achieve together. The most ambitious plan to tackle air quality anywhere in the world. The first ever gender pay audit at City Hall and a real plan to tackle pay inequality. Proudly marched at the front of Pride in London. The night tube will finally begin to open this summer. All TfL fares frozen for 4 years and pushing the government to freeze the fares on their lines. 2 bus journeys for the price of 1 from this September anywhere in London. Locked plans to develop on London's vital green belt. Started building my new Homes for Londoners team to ensure there are genuinely affordable homes to rent and buy. An extra dedicated police officer in every ward by 2017. Launched a terror preparedness review to keep Londoners safe from terrorist attacks. Clean bus lanes secured in some of the most polluted areas of London. Working on plans for London's first cultural enterprise zone. Approved the next cycle superhighway. Launched the London is Open campaign to show our city will always be outward looking and open to the world. All of this was only possible due to your help. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Clearly, and for good reasons, there are far fewer of us here for this important occasion than would normally be the case. However, I know that across our city and around the country, there are many who are with us in spirit. I'm grateful to London's Deputy Mayor Joanne McCartney and Assembly members Len Duval and Navin Shah for being here. And I want to say a special thank you to Wing Commander Chris Owen, not only for his years of service, but for representing our armed forces today. Armed Forces Day and the week leading up to it is a fantastic opportunity to express our profound gratitude to our men and women in uniform. It's a chance to salute their bravery, professionalism, skill, sense of duty and sacrifice. And it's a moment to show our support for everyone who makes up our armed forces community, from the troops and reservists currently serving, to the military families, veterans, cadets and service charities. And I know I can speak on behalf of all Londoners when I say we're grateful to them for the positive role they play in our communities. As Mayor, I've had no greater honour than spending time in the company of our veterans. These are people who've risked for our country their lives and for our safety, and who often have endured the pain and heartache of losing friends and colleagues, those who made the ultimate sacrifice so that we're able to live in peace and with our freedoms intact. So let me end by saying this. This Armed Services Day, we should not only applaud the courage and contribution of our military community, but we should also seek to draw on their example. The British Army, Royal Navy and Royal Air Force embody the best of our country. Indeed, we only know liberty and security today because of the battles they fought in decades past. So in these challenging times, let us take inspiration from their actions and achievements. Let us unite to overcome adversity once again, and then together build a future fit for our children and grandchildren. Thank you. I want to share with you today just half a dozen of the types of tweets that I receive. At Mem Usay tweeted, "Deport all Muslims and make London white again. All problems will be gone." At Warpreva tweeted, "Sadiq Khan is just a gay Muzzy terrorist." At Emmanuel_Maris tweeted, "Muslims have no dignity. I wish Sadiq Khan would blow himself up like they all do. He might get his 12 virgins." At Bill Wall 69 tweeted, "I say, kill the Mayor of London and you will be rid of one Muslim terrorist." At Latino_Amante tweeted, "Treason is still a crime punishable by death in this country. Your name will be at the top of that list." Now, I could go on, but I won't. I don't read this out to be portrayed as a victim or to ask for sympathy. But ask yourself this: what happens when young boys and girls from minority backgrounds see this kind of thing on their timelines, or experience it themselves, or someone thinking about becoming a politician? And what about girls and women who have been driven from these platforms, reversing our long fight for gender equality? We simply must do more to protect people online. Social media platforms already have a legal obligation to remove content that breaks local laws. But this isn't always happening, or happening quickly enough. Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms are finally starting to react to the criticisms and are developing technology to make sure the reporting process becomes quicker and more effective, and I welcome this. But with the skills and resources these companies have at their disposal, I believe it's possible to go further and faster. What we need to see is a stronger duty of care so that social media platforms can live up to their promises to be places that connect, unify, and democratize the sharing of information, and be places where everyone feels welcome and valued.
My name is Sadiq Khan. I am the Mayor of London. Please wear a face mask when you're out and about. My mask keeps you safe, and your mask will keep me safe.
Today, London suffered a horrific attack near Parliament Square, which we're treating as a terrorist attack. A number of people have lost their lives and at least 20 people have been injured. My heart goes out to those who've lost loved ones and to everyone who's been affected. Tragically, a Metropolitan Police officer who was doing his duty protecting our city is amongst those who've been killed. And my thoughts are with his family this evening. I want to express my gratitude on behalf of all Londoners to the police and emergency services who've shown tremendous bravery in exceptionally difficult circumstances. I've spoken to the Acting Metropolitan Police Commissioner Craig Mackey and National Lead for Counter-Terrorism Policing and Acting Deputy Commissioner Mark Rowley, and remain in close contact with them. Londoners should be aware that there will be additional armed and unarmed police officers on our streets from tonight in order to keep Londoners and all those visiting our city safe. I want to reassure all Londoners and all our visitors not to be alarmed. Our city remains one of the safest in the world. London is the greatest city in the world, and we stand together in the face of those who seek to harm us and destroy our way of life. We always have and we always will. Londoners will never be cowed by terrorism. I'd like to make a direct appeal to Londoners to urge you not to take to the streets to protest over the coming few days. Let me explain why. I stand with the millions of people around the world who are saying loud and clear that Black Lives Matter. This moment must be a catalyst for systemic lasting change to tackle the racism, inequalities and discrimination that black people still face today in this country and around the world. Londoners from all ages, races and backgrounds have been coming together to protest against racial injustice and structural racism. And it's clear that the majority of the protesters have been peaceful. However, I'm extremely concerned that further protests in central London could only risk spreading COVID-19, but lead to disorder, vandalism and violence. We know that extreme far-right groups who openly advocate hatred and division are planning counter-protests. This means that the risk of disorder is high. Being no doubt, these counter-protests are aimed at provoking violence. Their only goal is to distract from and hijack this important issue. That's why staying home and ignoring them is the best response this weekend. I want to be clear, any violence or criminal damage from anyone is always unacceptable and will simply not be tolerated in our city. The Metropolitan Police is working on a robust policing plan to keep Londoners safe and to prevent disorder. Together with our partners, we're ensuring that key statues and monuments at risk, including the Cenotaph, Winston Churchill and Nelson Mandela, are covered and protected. Our police officers are under growing pressure and strain. Over 60 officers have already been injured, having worked under extremely difficult circumstances to safely police protests, all at a time when COVID-19 still poses a grave threat to them and all our communities. These protests have shown just how difficult it is to maintain social distancing in large crowds, and the risk of spreading the disease at protests is very real, with confirmed new cases amongst protesters around the world from the US to Australia. I fear we could see the same here. So please, for yourselves, for your family members who may be vulnerable to COVID-19, and for the wider cause, I urge you to stay at home over the next few days and to find a safe way to make your voice heard. From tomorrow, large parts of our city will open for business once again. This positive step will help to kickstart our economic recovery and support local businesses. But the threat from COVID-19 remains very real. We can't afford to be complacent and risk wasting all the hard work and sacrifices that have been made. So my message is this: please go out and support your local businesses and cultural attractions. But remember that lives are still at stake. So stick to the rules and act responsibly. Keep a safe distance from others wherever possible. Wear a face covering if you can't, including in shops. Wash your hands regularly. And if you feel unwell, stay at home. Together, as Londoners, we've made huge strides in suppressing the spread of COVID-19. Instead of risking a deadly resurgence, let's build on this and maintain the incredible spread of social responsibility we've seen in recent months. Thank you. From tomorrow, large parts of our city will open for business once again. This positive step will help to kickstart our economic recovery and support local businesses. But the threat from COVID-19 remains very real. We can't afford to be complacent and risk wasting all the hard work and sacrifices that have been made. So my message is this: please go out and support your local businesses and cultural attractions. But remember that lives are still at stake. So stick to the rules and act responsibly. Keep a safe distance from others wherever possible. Wear a face covering if you can't, including in shops. Wash your hands regularly. And if you feel unwell, stay at home. Together, as Londoners, we've made huge strides in suppressing the spread of COVID-19. Instead of risking a deadly resurgence, let's build on this and maintain the incredible spread of social responsibility we've seen in recent months. Thank you.
Well, a little earlier I spoke to the Mayor about his warning to Londoners ahead of this weekend and asked his thoughts on the protests.
Well, I fully support the millions of people around the world who support the Black Lives Matter movement, but I am concerned about the protests in central London this weekend. So I'm asking all those who would normally come to central London in support of Black Lives Matter to stay at home. And the reason why I say this is for four main reasons. I'm worried about the spread of COVID-19. We now have examples around the world, from the USA to Australia, where people on protests have caught the virus. But also I'm worried about the potential for vandalism, violence and disorder, because we now know that the extreme far right have a number of groups who are embarking on counter-protests, sowing division and hatred. And I think we should try and avoid that at all costs.
For those that do attend, do you think there should be greater enforcement by the police, given that we're not meant to be gathering in groups of more than 6?
I think the reality is we saw last week that because of the larger numbers of people coming, it's not possible to keep your social distance safely, even with facial coverings and hand sanitizer. So my advice to Londoners is please don't come on the protest, stay at home. It is the case that if people gather in more than 6 outdoors, they're breaking the law. And we know the police have around the country been issuing fines. I'm hoping there's no need to do so this weekend, because I'm hoping that the public follow my imploring them to please stay at home and find another way to ensure that your voice is heard.
We've seen statues in the last 24 hours on Whitehall having to be protected ahead of this weekend. Do you regret that that's even necessary?
Well, of course I do, but I saw last weekend a small minority of people causing vandalism to the cenotaph, burning a flag and vandalising Winston Churchill's statue. It's a small minority. What we don't want is our statues targeted in this way. We have got intelligence and we've been informed that some of our statues are being targeted, from Winston Churchill to Nelson Mandela. That's not acceptable. And so we're erring on the side of the caution and protecting our statues. I'm not the first mayor to protect our statues in this way. The previous mayor, Boris Johnson, did so as well, because it's really important. And I'd rather being somebody who believes in prevention rather than dealing with the consequences by our statues not being protected.
Sadiq Khan, thank you very much.
We stand here together today in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in New Zealand. The best solidarity is showing that our diversity is a strength. We may be more than 11,000 miles away from Christchurch in New Zealand, but we feel the ripples of hatred, we feel the ripples of fear, and we feel the ripples of sorrow for our brothers and sisters in Christchurch. Let us be under no illusion. This was a terrorist attack on innocent men, women and children, deliberately targeted because the faith they belonged to, the place they were worshipping, was deliberately targeted because it was a masjid. There is a responsibility on all of us to be very careful in the language we use and the messages we amplify. There are some people in our city, in our country, who fan the flames of hatred. There are some people who demonize and dehumanize people because of the faith they follow. There are some people who, rather than addressing people's fears, play on them. You have a role to play in radicalizing people to become terrorists. And that's why it's really important we demonstrate from London that, as far as we're concerned, our diversity is a strength, not a weakness. We don't simply tolerate it, we celebrate it, we embrace it, and we respect it. It is the case, though, there'll be Muslims in London who'll be feeling vulnerable, feeling scared, feeling frightened because they are Muslims. I've spoken this morning and been in regular contact with the Met Police Service, with the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, with the Deputy Commissioner, and with the head of the counter-terror police here in London. I want to reassure all Muslims and everyone going to a place of worship today and over the course of the next few days, you'll be seeing increased policing around masjids, around mosques. high visibility policing to reassure you that here in London you're free to be who you want and worship who you want. And it's really important we as a city don't allow this terrorist to cower us to change the way we lead our lives. I want to end by echoing the message of the Imam during the sermon and also the Bishop of London. The thoughts and prayers of every decent Londoner are with those in Christchurch in New Zealand who have lost their lives. We stand in solidarity with the people of Christchurch, and we want to be a beacon to the rest of the world to show that whether you're a Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, whether you're a member of an organised faith or not, here in London you are welcome. London is open. President Trump, if you're watching this, your values and what you stand for are the complete opposite of London's values and the values in this country. We think diversity is not a weakness, diversity is a strength. We respect women and we think they're equal to men. We think it's important to safeguard the rights of all of us, particularly the vulnerable and the marginalised. When you are the President of the USA, you have a massive leadership role. You have a massive platform as well. People follow what you do. What we've seen over the last few years in the USA is a rolling back of much of the progress made in previous decades. It's really important we continue to move forwards. What we're seeing in the USA is a rolling back of the reproductive rights of women. We've got a situation now where some states in the USA are making it almost impossible for women to have the right to have an abortion. One has to look at the history books to realise the consequences of women not having the right to choose over their own body. What we can't afford to do is return to backstreet abortions. What we can't afford to see is a return to the situation in decades where you had women having no control over their bodies. It's really important we support women in the USA. The fight for gender equality shouldn't just be a fight for women and girls. All of us should be feminists, and that means men and boys too. It was Malala Yousafzai, the Nobel Prize winner, who said, how can all of us benefit when half of us are held back? That's why it's in all our interests to be feminists. If you believe that it's wrong that there's gender inequality, if you believe it's wrong that women earn less than men, if you believe it's wrong that women are still discriminated against in 2019, then you're a feminist. The brutal killing of George Floyd has rightly ignited fury, not just in America, but around the world. I completely understand the depth of anger it's caused. I feel it too. The grotesque scenes of excessive police force in America that we've witnessed on social media and television, and the desperation of African Americans has left me heartbroken. I stand in solidarity with the black community and millions of others across the world who are outraged by these events. No country, city, police force or institution can be complacent about racism and the devastating impact it has. Here in London, I know there have been some concerns about the police using excessive force on occasions. I take allegations like this extremely seriously and fully recognise the hurt and anguish it can cause black Londoners in particular. Policing is understandably under increased scrutiny at the moment, and it's vital that the police carry out their duties with the confidence of all the communities they exist to serve. I'm in regular contact with the Metropolitan Police, who recognise that community trust and confidence has to be continually and consistently earned and worked on. Engagement is crucial. Alongside the Met, my team and I continue to meet with community groups to listen and to hear the strength of feeling, and to ensure that as our police carry out their work to keep us all safe, policing in our city remains by consent. I know that some people may choose to take to the streets of London to protest. It's absolutely vital that if you do so peacefully, lawfully, and adhere to social distancing rules. This means staying 2 meters apart from others. COVID-19 still poses a grave risk, and we must all continue to help stop the spread of the virus to save lives. Londoners stand in solidarity with anti-racist movements around the world. George Floyd's shocking death must serve as a catalyst for change. I'm mayor of the greatest city in the world. One of our strengths is our diversity, but we do know there are people out there who hate our diversity, who hate what we stand for, and are trying to seek to divide us. What was amazing about today is we saw in the one individual, the suspect, the worst of humanity, but we also saw in the response from members of the public, but also our emergency services, that we are resolute, and we stand united in the face of terrorism, and we will not allow anybody to divide us. Eid Mubarak. I want to send my warmest wishes to everyone celebrating Eid al-Fitr this weekend. Normally, we spend time with our friends, family and fellow worshippers, but this year we've got to stay at home and save lives. Please continue to follow these rules this weekend. Eid Mubarak.